Walk It Out with the Hamptons. I'm Wandria.
And I'm Chris.
And we're going to talk about everything love, life, and leadership.
And all those things in between.
And everything in between. Talk about in between. We want to start talking today just about our restoration process. A lot of people don't know, maybe they do, but we were separated for 9 years. And we started the process of coming back together, living under one household. But that process, it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't easy. And like I said, there's a whole lot of stuff in between from the time that we got reconciled. It's kind of funny because we met in church. We reconciled in church. And we actually served in the same church for that 9-year separation. You know how when you go through relationships sometimes and you are worshiping in the same place and you see couples get, divorced, you rarely see them stay in the same place of worship. But we stayed the same, we were leaders. We stayed in the same leaders, and it was weird because as the church grew, people swore that we were brothers and sisters.
Because we still talked, we were still cordial with one another, we were still doing all the things, but we were living separate lives at the time.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is when we talk to couples now about our restoration process and what we had to go through, they see us today and think, oh, it must have happened overnight, but contraire, mon frere.
9 years is a long time. That's like 2 lifetimes. It's a totally different person in a decade.
Yeah, it was almost a decade.
It was interesting. Well, I really wanted to talk about, like how we got into that position because, it's really neat to see us now, but how did we get to where we were at? When we were dating, it was funny because when we met, I was teaching a singles Bible what was it?
Bible study, like a small group,
right, in her home after my best friends got married, and then I took over, and then I was the single guy teaching in the house, and then we kind of clicked. So the relationship was good. We had a good friendship, and that's one of the things that I believe is even when you go through separation or divorce is that if you had a good friendship to begin with, sometimes you can reset. I'm not, some things you have trust factors and issues like that that need to be removed depending on how you split. But we split because of a toxic level was really, really, really bad in our relationship at that time. But it was no reason for us to be villainizing each other. It really was no reason for us to really, there was a need for separation, but not as long as we did. We basically decided that we were going to go our separate ways and live life. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of talk against separation sometimes. A separation without a plan.
Without a plan.
Usually turns into like a divorce situation a lot quicker because you're just getting out of the situation. And then when you start getting out of that situation, you start giving in survival mode. How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to do these things? And you're not really putting that attention back to the healing of the relationship. You're starting over. But what we did where we got to the point that we were so toxic. How did we get toxic? That was kind of interesting because we got married and Wandria had 2 beautiful children. And I was Mr. Brady, so I thought I was doing the Brady Bunch. Oh. And I thought it was like, here's the story. It's the brother Chris. And what happened was when we got married, something changed because when we were dating, none of those things were really going on.
I think it was the reality of this is no longer brother Chris coming to the house, leaving, coming over, taking us out. It was the reality of living the day-to-day life that was the unexpected of how we would navigate, going through premarital, it's one thing, but actually putting that into practice was totally different.
Totally. If I actually had a chance to do it again, and as I talk to, blended families that are coming together, that are dating, I would make sure that you're dating the family. When you're doing that, I know you're getting a chance to know your future spouse. But if they have children, you need to not force the bond.
Force it.
But
That's
make sure that you are making them a part of the relationship so that it doesn't seem like it's there. And I brought
But I think before you go, it's important at what time you bring them into the relationship. Not at the beginning when you guys are still figuring it out or you're just dating. Not even, I would say, in the middle. I think once we began the counseling process, the premarital counseling process, at some point during that time, it would have been good if we would have brought the kids in.
Because you have to really realize.
Plus, they were older. They were like 8, not older, but they were 8 and 9.
And they were 8 and 9. So I'm thinking that, I was there when they were
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
We started dating when they were 5 and 6.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, they're 5 and 6. They're young. All they really know is me. They really never saw their father. Mm-hmm. So, like, in my mind, I was coming into a fresh family, not to realize that your children might not be able to voice their frustration or voice their shadows that are in their head, because our daughter had a shadow, a shadow of her father, and coming into that relationship, I was the intruder in that relationship. So no matter how good I was in the beginning, I'm still replacing that shadow.
It's replacing, I think it's I'm going to say little girls, but I'm sure it happens to young men also. In the back of your mind, there's always that as long as you were Brother Chris, it still made way for my father to come back into, the marriage, the life, our lives. Mm-hmm. But they didn't realize and couldn't process at 8 and 9 that their father was not coming back.
Right.
But it was always that little hope.
Right.
But you said in the beginning you were like Mr. Brady, and that's true, because in your mindset you had a way of how the family would function and run, and coming into the household, it was like we already had certain things established. Like we had Friday night family night, and we had all of these, date days and things that were already established. And I remember when one of our good friends said, Chris, you can't come in, and be like, this is Mr. Brady.
No, this is the rule.
You gotta kind of go with the flow. He was like, this is the Hampton house. Friday night, family night. Gone, so it was not that rough, but it was like some of the things that we were used to doing, we had to figure out how to navigate it, and it was difficult. It
was difficult for all of us. So I know if it was traumatizing for me, it must have been traumatizing for them as well, because they were not able to communicate. And then, like I said, one of the things with blended families is that it's really about cultivating the relationship and building solid relationships all the way around, because when the children now step up, there's even rules on how we are to do rules of engagement for discipline. That might be a hot topic that we talk about, is like who disciplines in a blended family, and it really is the parent that's supposed to be able to discipline. But what would happen?
Which parent? You said the parent.
The parent who is the birth child.
The biological parent.
The biological birth child should have that discipline until relationship is established and comfortable, that those children know that you love them, regardless. And you can love them, but they have to be comfortable in knowing that. It's
not our perspective of, they should know that I love them. It's their perception of how they receive love, and that trust is built. Because if you're disciplining without trust being the foundation in a relationship, when it's the parent that's not the biological parent, it can seem a punishment. And the goal is never to punish kids, it's to discipline them.
And you have to make sure that, and this will test your maturity, you should be checking the maturity of the spouse that you were dealing with. Because I was immature on all levels. We were young. I was younger. And
all right, tell the truth.
All right, like I said, we said it before. It was an age difference.
It's
9 different ages.
It's a 9-year age gap
and
between us.
There's no shame in that game, because the issue was, again, she had been there, wrote the book the first time, and I'm going through it
for the first time. Absolutely.
So what she's already gone through and seen through and navigated through, now we're dealing with it on a totally different level, and I'm coming in as headship and trying to make sure that I'm providing leadership for the family, and just running against brick walls. Now, what we had a lot of issues was, again, more with my daughter than my son. My son had his issues too, but his were a little more silent. But my daughter
silent and didn't really show up until he was older.
My daughter is actually the spitting image of me in my personality.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna say what we're gonna say. We're gonna say what I mean. I'm gonna say it with my chest.
She's gonna say it with her chest.
And I didn't.
And her daughter's that way, which is, I think, is hilarious.
I laugh when I see them growing up, and they're funny is because I watch her now in a blended family situation. So she's seeing what we went through. But praise God, her, the family is really,
I think
really
she said
tight.
that. She said she really learned now as an adult in a blended family how to navigate and how to acquiesce in certain areas because of what she experienced.
Right.
So
And it was difficult. It's difficult because there's a level of humility that has to come out of this.
Definitely.
There's a level of, swallowing your pride. And as a man and as a young man, I didn't know. So, like, growing up, I grew up where disrespect was not tolerated on any level. And so when a child would disrespect me, didn't realize that I had a trigger. And like, this is not how we handle it. It's not the disrespect, but it was how I handled
How
the
it was
disrespect
handled.
that was going there, because I'm thinking that I can handle this as a full-blown parent. I'm going to talk to you the way my mama would have did, my grandmama would have did it, all the mamas would have did it to me.
But you know what? Again, that's the differences even in how we were raised and how we bring our perceptions into a marriage and into a relationship, because you come from a confrontational family, which is not a bad thing.
Well, confrontational meaning what? Say what confrontational.
They like to argue.
Well, no, we just loud.
They are loud,
loud.
and they like to argue. and as much as I like to laugh, I'm not and be loud laughing. I didn't come from that kind of a family.
Her
that
dad is
were
like
loud.
really
My
that
dad
quiet
was
strength level, and just had that deep voice and just that calming voice. But that wasn't us. So like my mom and my grandmother, we're just loud. Like we praised loud, we talk loud. So I'm talking like this, and they're like, "Why are you screaming?" Why are y'all screaming at each other? My mom is talking to me, and I'm talking back to her, and it sounds like we're having an argument. Right. That's just how we talk. So
in my household, and even before you were married, you could come into my house, and I remember somebody came in, and we were like, "Your house is so peaceful," because it's the calming music playing, and the kids would be reading, or I would be doing whatever, but it was always this calmness. And even when it came to having disagreements, even with the kids, we would have our one-on-one quiet talks. So I would go into their rooms and we would share about how are you feeling, how are you. So,
but I've seen her go. No, listen, hold on. I've seen her. She makes it look like
Oh no, not the Brady.
And we gonna
absolutely
do
not.
No, I've seen her go.
But no, not at 8 and 9. No, that was as they grew older. Then of course our conversations changed, but not at that age. Yeah. It was very much. How are you feeling? Share it with me, because I realized they couldn't tell you exactly, because you had to peel back the layers as to where they were.
But even with that, it was and coming from the level, and then we have to learn how to deal with these scenarios, because when it comes to disrespect was my hot button. That was my hot button. So I would watch her discipline them, and then I would try to come at the same level that she was. But then somehow I would become wrong because of how I crossed the barrier somewhere. So the issue was being able to trust your spouse to be able to represent. And at that time, I didn't trust her to represent, because it was always coming back at me from my perspective. It was always coming back. So I was always on guard, always on heightened a level. And then a lot of times, because she didn't see it until like later in life, like when she got into her teens, that's when she saw I was sitting back and she was going at the grandparents and she was going off on her. But I was like, that's what I was getting the whole entire time. So now y'all getting it looking like it's horrified, but it still didn't excuse. It didn't excuse what I was saying at that time. But I was trying to express what was going on. And said, that's the behavior. That level of disrespect that you feel right now, that's the heat that I was receiving on air.
But on the other hand, the reason why we could handle it was, again, because of relationship. And we could see, okay, she was a teenage girl and a teenage boy, and they were going through their moments, and they were teenagers being teenagers. Yeah. So when the disrespect came, it was like, are you serious? But it wasn't like detrimental, like I got to get back at them, because they were teenagers.
It was blowing up. And I saw the response of everybody, and I was like, now y'all responding the way I am. But I said, are you seeing the heat that I was getting? But at that time, now take that 6 years in and thinking that, and now I'm coming in not knowing how to express it, not knowing how to show it. So even as a parent, you have to make sure as husband and wife that y'all are communicating and understanding, because what I was realizing was when I took discipline too far, or I responded out of anger. And that was another thing, knowing that you have to realize that you can't discipline out of anger. And for me being single, and I called myself single and secluded, but single.
No, true. Yeah, you
I'm
were.
very protective of my emotions. I'm very protective of how people get close to me.
Right.
So not a lot of people got really close to me. So when we got married, what happened was I had no escape. There was no escape. So when they hit the hot button, they hit the bot button. I'm understanding that I'm now responding out of a reaction,
right.
rather than a response. And then it would go too far. And then I'm thinking, ain't nobody in my generation's been disrespected like this before. Shut it down. And then somewhere I would mess up and say something, or mess up and do something. And then what happens is it would negate everything that happened, because you have to deal with the person that is with the most responsibility first.
Again, so sometimes when incidents would happen, that's true. Like, I would want to deal with them, but I couldn't deal with them or talk to them because
I was hot and heavy.
Like,
what
was that, sir? What
I was
on?
hot, heavy, and going on. And when I realized that it was starting to go towards her, we were not beating and punching and fighting. No, we were all war of words, but it was toxic. It became toxic when everybody began to separate and go into their own silos. And then nobody was respecting anybody. And then it hit our relationship even more, because my wife was not able to stand by my side. She had to stand in the middle.
I definitely felt the heat from both sides. And I don't think that's anything I really expressed like outwardly before. I don't know if anybody understood the pressure of being in the middle, being in the middle of trying to explain to your children that this husband, this is my husband, and this is who I chose. I know you all didn't choose him, but I chose him. And then standing with you and saying, I know that they're being rude and disrespectful, and I hear you. That back and forth shut me down.
Yeah, and now look at that. You look at what we're talking about right there. We had her situation, my son's situation, my daughter's situation, and my situation, all volatile at the same time, because we don't know how to express ourselves. We don't have the relationship to connect. And every time we would try to do it, it was like oil and water. It was like fireworks. So, and me being young, no matter how, and I realized this as much, because we had counsel.
We had great counseling.
Let's
start there.
We had really great counsel. And as I'm now counseling people now, and I'm like, you don't see it. You really don't see it. So I have to give grace to people that we talk to, because it's like, you don't see that hole right there, and then you don't look.
You're gonna step into the hole.
You're going to go deep, and then realize when we're talking to other people. We're talking to other people the way people were talking to us, and we weren't seeing it.
We were not seeing it.
Sometimes you have to let people go through it so that they can experience it and go through it, even though you don't want them to go through it. And like I said, some of the best people I had, I remember Ayana told me this, about your expectation for your family, especially as a blended family. Your expectation is for us to be clicking right now. You're not thinking about it takes 10 years of you to be clicking. It takes 10 years. So it could take.
Can you say that anybody that's out there that's in this blended family situation, you're just starting out, it truly takes about that 8 to 10 years before you are moving and grooving as a family.
But I wasn't hearing it.
And you're like, what am I going to do in those 8 years? What am I going to do?
This is a war zone.
You have to realize that you are the adult. They are the children. Even if they're teens and it's a blended family, you are still the adult, and how you handle sets the pace. It sets the atmosphere for how the children respond. And they will come on board when they feel safe, when they feel like they can be vulnerable and heard, and all the things. But it takes time.
And here's the thing that you have to realize too, is that you have to make sure that you are building those relationships. And I remember, because like I said, one of my best, not my best man, but one of my, it's so great. We had a great wedding party, because all the men in my life, they're still in my life, and they held it down. But while we were going through this, he don't even remember me asking, because I told him about it the other day. Calvin was one of my groomsmen, and he was talking to me because he had a blended family. And he said this statement that stuck with me for the rest of my whole entire life that I have up until this point. And I use it for multiple things, but especially for family. He said, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. And he
That
said,
is
I'll
good.
say it one more
Say it
time.
again. That is good.
Rules without relationship leads to rebellion. And what that was saying was, Chris, I was coming in here laying down the law, laying down the structure. This is how the Hampton household's going to be. This is how we're going to roll. And when they were trying to come back and me standing in that point, they were like, well, that's not how our life was. And this is not what this is. What mommy's going to do this. I got to listen to you. And I was like, all those different things. And you're trying to lay the letter of the law down. And that's what it's coming across as, the law, not the love.
It's
So they're not
again,
even
yep,
seeing-
it's coming
they're not
across
even
as
seeing that.
punishment.
They're
You're
coming in as-
punishing me.
yes.
Why? What did I do that you're punishing me for? What? For being part of this relationship?
And we were
being part
both
of this
spiritually
marriage?
mature. We thought
Yeah,
we were spiritually
we thought-
mature.
Oh, we thought we were.
Listen, I'll tell you, marriage. I'm coming from a Christian basis, so we're a Christian family. I'm going to let y'all know
we
right now.
thought
Every
we
now and then
were.
we're going to give you a scripture somewhere here. But it says,
Marriage will show you how mature you are.
No, marriage will show you how saved you are, how much word you really know.
Yes.
Because being able to love and to forgive and to be able to do that, did not see that. So what happened was, as we tried to navigate this, we became toxic to the point that we could not communicate anymore, and it became to the point that everybody was so toxic.
Our house was a war zone.
It was a war zone. It was a war zone. You talking about people arguing before church, after church, and
In
coming
between
in church, looking good,
in
and
the
then
middle of church.
sitting there looking at you like crazy, having like a tick like this. That was us. But I thank God, because I now know why. And a lot of things is going through something in life and not knowing why, and not understanding it, you don't get wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. We had a lot of wisdom in that situation to do that, because we were toxic. And when we separated, I mean, we pulled it out and worked on it, separated for a year, working on it. And it still got to a point where we were like, went different ways.
This is
And
not
when
working.
Never wanted it to happen, never wanted to be there,
Absolutely.
and never got to that point of, really finding that finality. Something in me was like, we're not over. And that's the part where we're talking about that 9 years in the wilderness of life. Well, what did you do? Because most people get separated, they get divorced, they put the divorce paperwork down, and they do it. She didn't write any divorce paperwork, and I think she thought I was going to do it, but I wasn't the one.
You served me.
No, I didn't serve you.
I got served at work.
I didn't serve you.
I got served at work.
I didn't serve you.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I got served at work. Ask the people at the front desk. I will tell you their names later.
All right, so
I was
you must
served at work.
have mailed it, because I never signed it, because I never took
I
it.
don't know what part after that.
But I was in the midst of doing the paperwork. I did went to a lawyer, and I did fill paperwork out.
And I got served.
And she got served, because she was like, I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to do what she did. And there was some other things she did in survival mode that was like really rough, that left me out in the open. So I was like, did the paperwork, did all that stuff. And I'm like, why am I doing this paperwork? I never wanted this. So I was like, I didn't want this. So I didn't do a court date or anything. I just let that thing sealed. But I left, because I never closed it, I left my heart open, and I was still open. So never reveal that. Date people, and in that 9-year period of time, which I shouldn't have been dating anybody, but I was dating people, but I would date smart, intelligent, emotionally intelligent people, because that's who I attract, and that's who I'm attracted to. And they would tell me, you're still connected. Mm-hmm. They're like, you're still connected. And I'm sitting here, and it's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm just right now. No, I'm not.
I'm not.
I'm not free. But the people that like I said.
But how were you free? Wait a minute. How were you free when you served me papers, but you didn't file them? How did you think you were free to date?
Well,
that's a very interesting question.
You can't talk about me dating. Hold on, how you were dating?
I thought we were divorced.
How you gonna go divorce and don't go to court?
I thought we were divorced because it happened in my first marriage. I thought we were divorced.
No, it wasn't, because when you came back to me, 9 years later, you were like, how come we never divorced? And you that was the whole conversation. That was 9 years. So you came back to me 9 years because you're about to start life over again.
Yes.
And you came back to me.
That's a separate
and
podcast
it's just like,
that will
that's a whole
never
podcast
air.
that is like, yeah, we're gonna air that one too. Yeah, we're gonna leave all the names out. But it was just like, listen, but it was like, came back to me, it was like 9 years later, and all right. But never, I never filed anything. So I was like out there doing my thing, and I was just realizing, and when three people say the same thing, it must be true. So I had to start looking at myself. So I start being able to take that time to really evaluate who I was as a person. And that's when changes started to happen in me, was when I decided to be able to do it. My thing was, I did go to a lawyer. I did get the paperwork up. And that's all I did, because I wrote the paperwork. She must have mailed it to you and sent it to you.
No, honey, they came to my job and they served me with the papers. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Wow. Because
they
in there,
served me with the papers.
but in the papers it said the next steps is that you had to go to court, and they actually said it in the paper that we had to go to court. But I was like, I'm not going to court. I simply said, I am not going to court. I didn't want this to begin with. And I swore to her, I was like, but this is how God works. I'll tell you that God was in it. I said, God works, because I was like, she wants to do this, then she can write the paperwork and go.
But you already wait.
No,
I'm so confused.
Well, she's the legal secretary. I'm not. I was
confused right now.
Because here's what happened. The paperwork was done, and I was like, we're not divorced until we go to court. That's what the person told me. I have to go to court. And I was like sitting here looking at the paperwork, like, I'm not going to court. I don't want this. Right. I didn't want this. And if she wants it, she'll sign it and send it back and do what she needs to do.
I'm going to tell you what happened. I got served with those divorce papers. I went home. I threw them in the trash.
Okay, we got to find out if we're legally like.
So we don't. What is that? Threw them in the trash.
And that was the funky thing about it, was because I was like, I'm not doing this, and it's not doing this. And then when you came back 9 years because you're about to move on, I was like, well, like I said, you were the one that said I'm out. So that was like, when you said I'm out, you were like, I'm out, and I was like. And it's funny because, again, this is where the enemy comes in, is tries to mess up communication. And he was like, well, I'm out. And I said, well, when we were at the diner and we were talking, and
it wasn't at the diner. Guess where we were? We were at Bonefish Grill.
Okay, it was a restaurant. We did it in the restaurant.
No, I'm laughing because every time I go to Bonefish in Deptford, I think about, yes, it was Bonefish Grill in Deptford.
We got to find a new
narrative. I think about that. Well, I'm like, this is where he told me.
Now we're at the 9 years. So 9 years of us being separated, going through our life, and having that first relationship of who we are. We come to the table because this was a defining moment. Because if she said to me, from my point of view, okay, she's like, well, why haven't you divorced me yet? Or why haven't we gone through this divorce? And my immediate response was, the honest response, was we didn't have grounds for divorce. Mm-hmm. I really didn't feel like we had grounds for divorce. And it came out of my mouth like, I said, but if I could do it all over again, I still would. And then you were like, I got to think.
I got to think about that. I got to think about that.
I got to think.
Put a comma right there.
Put a comma right there. I got to think. Talk about it, because you're about to move forward. And that was a weird time because we didn't have any emotional connection. Wasn't thinking about each other like that, but I had to give an honest thing, and I had to realize that what all the women were saying was right, and being able to say that I was still connected. But if you would at that point had wanted to walk away and start life over,
I didn't know what to say.
I would have let you go, and I would have went through the process of doing that. But you had to hear that, and then coming back, and you had to think of that. We talked about that in another episode. Coming back, and then we were able to say. Well, let's see how this is going to go, which was another journey on top of that.
Yeah, it was another journey on top of that.
Nothing about this is simplified.
When we were at the Bonefish Grill and you said, I never filed the divorce papers, that was the first time I'd heard that. Because up until that point, from the time I got served, I threw the papers in the trash. I don't know what took place. Mm-hmm. I just assumed that we were divorced until I was asked, what is the date that your divorce became final? And I said, oh, that's a good question. Then I called you and you said, let's talk.
Yeah.
So let's tell the whole story.
Well, no,
that was a timeline.
Well, it's not like we were holding on to any parts about it. We're talking about it from 2 points of view.
Right.
And that's one of the things we talk about when communication is that when you're communicating, and if you understand communication, you're talking from the perspective of
your perception.
Views.
Right.
Because from the mindset of who divorced to, you asked me who left to, I said she left me. And that was the truth. She left me. So I was like, I'm out of here. I ain't doing this no more. See you when I see you. Now I'm in here. doing
You
this.
were so funny. I left you.
You left me.
You served me.
No, you left. No, hold on. This is a track of marriage. Here's how it went down. This is how memories is faulty, because I remember this. When you said that we wanted to get separated and we wanted to go no more, we didn't want to do counseling no more, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You did.
I remember that.
You left that. That was where you left. And when you left, we were no longer taking care of everything. We had to go around, we separated, let you live in the house where you were at and do what you do. And we went into different directions, and then we went two totally different directions from that point. But my mindset was like, she wanted this. I didn't want this. I didn't want. And that was always the mindset.
I'm getting a revelation.
Yeah, that was the mindset.
No, I'm getting a revelation, because even during that time when we were separated, before we had like this final cut, like you were taking care of like the household still. He was living in other places, but you were still taking care of our household and wherever you were living. So yeah.
So when we were doing that, we were doing it. And when it stopped, it stopped. So I was like, and then when you made the decision to do certain things and you left, and it left me there holding that, I had to hold that. So I had to deal with that. I had to go back and deal with all that. But at the end, I was like, I never really wanted that. So as we went on through life, I was like, how come I can't be like those couples that, God, I was like, how come I can't be like that couple that they get divorced on Friday and they're married next year?
Oh,
and it was like, being able to do that. But God never let me.
Because we had a covenant, even beyond all the craziness, us thinking that we're divorced, we're not divorced, we're dating other people, we're doing all the crazy. The bottom line is, even when we came back together, the process of us becoming one again was that we knew the Lord, we knew better. Right. We knew better, and we had to get to the point of we were not working out of our selfish motives, self-preservation, all the things, and we had to finally, I'm going to say me, not you, me, finally submit to what the Lord was saying, because at that time I was just trying to preserve myself. Like it was all about survival, like you said. But when I heard God clearly after Bonefish Grill, and on my way home that night crying like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like I'm thinking my life was going one way, and now it's like, no, we're still married. And God saying to me like, you need to say goodbye to the other so you can work on this. And I remember crying and snotting and fighting God like, no, but in the back of my mind, I knew better.
And I'm sitting in my mind like, what in the world did I just do? Like,
I knew better.
I thought I was free.
He didn't understand, right? He didn't understand. He's thinking, but the bottom line is that we both knew God and we knew better. Though we were fighting our flesh, fighting what we thought we wanted, fighting all the other things, we also knew that we made a covenant. I'd already broken one covenant. That was a different type of situation. This was not that. And that's what God kept dealing with me. He is not that. So you need to stand and stay and fight for this one.
See how this is a multi-episode conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Because
got stories.
That's why I keep on, she's like, Chris, you keep on asking me, what time period do you want? Because you just can't throw this out here and be like, okay, we did. No, there's a lot of stuff in there, and both of us were, we both loved God. We both were in ministry together. We still stayed in the same church, which was amazing.
Because I wasn't leaving.
I wasn't leaving either.
I wasn't leaving.
It's not because we're stubborn, but here's how I knew.
It was our set place.
This is how I knew that I was supposed to stay where I was supposed to stay. The ministry that we were serving in, that we are still a part of now, the word was still speaking to me in my situation. Even in my hurt mode, the word and the timing and the season was still being able to speak to my life. So I'm not one of these people that have 15 churches in their life. I've only had 3 churches in my whole entire lifetime that I've been a part of.
This is my third.
And in the midst of that, I was like, I can't justify, because of my emotional mindset, to leave this place, because this was a safe place for me. And I knew that they would cover us in that situation, and they didn't treat us as two people like I was right and she was wrong. We were both wrong, but it still didn't stop God from loving us. It still didn't stop God from using us. But we still treated each other with respect and love. And that was the main story that I was saying. If you say everything in there, drama is a choice. And I'm realizing that more as as I mature. Drama, and I love to argue, but still, drama is a choice. And whether you choose to treat somebody that way, that shows how your heart is not resolved in that situation. I should be able to look at the person that offended me and still show them love. I don't have to trust them. I don't have to give them my heart and all those things, but I still should be able to love you enough to show you a medium of love and respect that's in there.
Because the one thing that I would hear over and over and over again, I think that kept the friendship there, kept the love there, was that God was like, beyond anything else, that's your brother in the Lord. And I used to be like, but I want to wring my brother's neck. But that's your brother in the Lord. So even when we're going through, even when I would see you, I would treating you like I would a brother in the Lord. So how you doing? How's things going? Nothing hot and heavy, but we would just go our separate ways, which is why I think it's funny that people didn't know for a long time that we were separated.
They think we look alike. So it's like, I don't want to say we cousins because I found out that was a whole other story. I said, if I'm going to marry somebody, I want to marry somebody outside of New Jersey. And my wife is from Brooklyn via North Carolina. So, and
Virginia. My mom's from South Hill, Virginia.
So, but it's her dad's side that freaked me out because I was like, oh, her family, her kin are from North Carolina. And then I talked to my cousin who now goes to church, and she was like, yep. We got family down there in Lumberton, North Carolina too. I said, but they're the McCalls. Yep, we got some McCalls in there, and I'm like, yeah.
We're not chasing that.
No, we're not chasing that. But people used to call us brother and sister for so long that they were like, then when they saw us as we were doing, I'm sitting here doing this, and they're like, why is he touching her like that?
Why is he touching her sister? Gross.
That's my wife. But the reason for us talking about this is because we realize that one, we're not alone. All of us are going through similar journeys, and if you can learn some principles out of there, even going back to the children, I'm so glad to see where we are with them even today. Most of y'all who know me know I'm a grandpa. I got 4 now.
We have 4.
But that's one of the. I am so overly excited about being a papa because I was never able to be a father in the beginning. So I'm making it up now. Even though I feel like part of me was there, in there, it's like, no, I'm ingrained into that family now because we were here from the beginning.
Right.
So the same brother Chris that was here is the same papa that's here now. But we don't have all that stuff.
No, but you're not the same person. No. That's not true.
Got a little patience to me.
I can't agree with that. You're not the same person at all.
I wouldn't say I was the same person.
You have evolved.
I've evolved.
Yes.
I've evolved. And we're not the same.
That's a good thing.
Yes. And even my daughter and they're not the same. They're not the same people. So some things that, like I learned an important lesson with, my father is that, my father left us at an early, not by my teens. He left us and went to another relationship like that as a teen, and that hurt us as a family. But I've learned to give people grace because a lot of times you don't understand what they went through.
What they were going through.
My father and my mother was dealing with bipolar schizophrenia from a car accident that triggered it, and from that point, her mind was not the same. So she was being in crisis, and so dealing with people with mental disorders, that's not the easiest thing either. My thing was he left us with my mom who had the mental disorder and wasn't checking in on us and wasn't doing anything like that, and then not realizing that he didn't walk us through anything on those things. So it was like, a little resentment from that part. But as I got older, I learned how to forgive and learned to give him grace. Because as we got married, we learned that there was a whole bunch of stuff that people really don't see above the outside.
Exactly.
And but for the grace of God, it could have been anybody dealing with that situation. Definitely. So you have to learn to give each other grace, give people grace, and give people patience.
But I think that's the same way when we began to, reconcile our marriage. That was one of the biggest things. The same grace that I wanted God to extend to me, how dare I not extend it to you?
Yeah.
That's just how he works, and he covers us. He covers us when we're not sure. He covers us when we're fearful. If you keep your eyes, I was sharing this with somebody the other day, you got to stop looking at the person, first of all, as your enemy. You were never my enemy. You were my friend. Before you became my husband, you were my friend. So if nothing else, go back to that core of that is my friend. How
Reset
am I
buttons.
doing with my friend? And allowing, God to restore the trust, restore the relationship. And as we're walking this thing out, walk it out, right? As we're walking this thing out, he's going to give us the tools that I needed. He's going to give me what I need in order to overcome what was holding my heart back.
That's good. That's really good. You got to say loud on that. Think about it. And again, just remember this. It's like there's so many things if I could dissect. And like I said, we're still not doing it any justice because there's the 9 years in between, the revelation of self, just being able, the maturity of life, just being able to mature that you're not, we weren't the same. That's a whole episode by itself to talk about, the reconciliation process because we were 9 years restored, 4 years trying to just get
Figure
to
it
know
out,
each other
right.
again and not fall into the same patterns that we had before. And, I
Because
was,
we didn't have the excuse of the kids anymore. It was no longer, the kids.
but it wasn't the kid's fault
It
in
wasn't
the
the
beginning.
kid's fault,
Yeah.
but not that feeling like I'm stuck in between. They were no longer there for me to be in between because now they're adults. Now, Wandria, what is the issue?
And I think one of the best things that we did was we were able to get spiritual counseling, but we also got outside of the church therapy as well.
Absolutely.
And therapy, and I'm
Absolutely.
I'm an
Absolutely.
advocate for therapy because not only did we need the spiritual side, we needed the mental aspects of it individually. And I think that's where we saw a lot of the healing come forth is when we were able to say, okay, that right there, where did that come from?
Where did that come
That has
from?
nothing to do with Chris and Juan. This is all Chris. That has nothing to do with Chris. That has to deal with all Wandria. And sometimes that outside voice is going to be able to help you as well.
It was that light. It was that extra light. Even though from the spiritual side, we were hearing from God as far as spiritually what we needed to do. But, God talks about we are spirit, soul, and body. And our spirit couldn't get to where it needed to be because there were some areas in our soul that needed to be healed and dealt with and confronted,
Soul might mean as your mind, your will, your emotions, your intellect.
Yes.
All those things need to be worked. So, there are certain doctors that deal with the emotional and the intellect. So being able to submit to that is a big thing as well. I mean, we could be talking for hours on this. So,
But we won't.
We won't. We have now come to episode 2 of Walk It Out with the Hamptons. We're not going to try to shove too much in there. We want you to be able to digest and really just think about it. But I want to say this: if you are a couple right now and you're going through this time
Yes.
where you're not syncing, you're going through this area where you are just not seeming to come together, and you see all these distractions because that's all they are distractions. We got to be able to say, hey, what is the root? And so a lot of times the root is in us. It's okay to get help. It's okay to be able to say you're not what you think you are. You're not who you thought you were. But in
You're
the
not
end,
where you thought you
where
were
you thought you are.
spiritually, all of the things.
The first thing is that you have to be honest with where you are as an individual, then as a couple.
And to ask Holy Spirit to deal with you, because one of the biggest deliverances that came in our marriage and our reconciliation is when I stopped looking at you and began to look up and ask God to help me deal with me.
And like I said, in my wilderness experience, that's where you can take yourself out of a situation, then look at the situation and be able to say, all right, let me take all the wrong that my partner did to me out of the situation and then say, I've done enough wrong in here myself. And when you can just view that by itself, isolate that and work on those areas of yourself, that's when the healing started to become in me. That I had already done the work by the time she said, what's going on, that I can honestly say, let's do this again. Because here's the issue. You can do this, and some of y'all been married twice, 3 times, 4 times, right? And you realize that you go into the next relationship, but you still bring that
You
the same
still bring you with
into
you.
that relationship, and you're like, why am I in this same situation? The common denominator is you. So until you're able to get the healing for yourself done and be real, because it can't always be someone else's the problem. You got to go back and say, what's my part in this, and then isolate that and just deal with you. You have enough work to deal with you to keep you busy.
My God, yes.
To keep you busy. So don't focus on it's always her. No, it's what am I contributing to this situation? And that's where the healing begins, and that's where the God can move, and the reconciliation can start. But you got to be honest with who you are.
Yeah, because God can only bless what you're honest and open about, and you can't know what you need help with if you're not honest with yourself, with God. And it's not so much my partner, but it's me. It's me, oh Lord, it's me. That needs the healing, that needs the help, and everything else will fall into place, really.
Well, I hope that this was helpful for you and that this encourages you. I want you to like and subscribe and continue to watch us on Spotify. We'll be putting some on YouTube as well. And just follow us. And if you have something to say to us, encourage us, share with us your story. We want to hear it all.
Oh,
as
we'd
well.
love to hear your story.
We would love to hear your testimony. We would love to even hear the issues as well. And if there's something that we can talk about as a topic and we've experienced it, we're only going to share from where we come from and our experience. We would love to be able to hear that as well.
Yes.
Again, you've come out with another episode of Walk It Out with the Hamptons, Life, Love, and Leadership. And we hope to see you on episode 3. I'm Chris Hampton.
I'm Wandria.
See you later.
Bye-bye.